Good evening. My name is Shajjad. I am an architect and PhD candidate in the University of Évora in Portugal. Today's presentation is based on one part of my doctoral research. My research focuses on methodology based on mapping in order to identify the morphology of historic settlement. Literary cartographic mapping is one main approach that I am currently working on. I am going to quickly summarize the key idea in next two slides and then present a case study in Bangladesh to demonstrate how the idea is adopted. Every moment becomes history when the next moment arrives, be it architecture, city, culture, or even landscape. But no particular moment is lost forever. Rather, the imprints of moments remain in layers, deposited one onto another, perhaps waiting to be decoded. The imprints are cast both in tangible and intangible forms, such as landscape, architecture, toponym, history, story, memory, folklore, and other literatures. A historic site, landscape, or city merged in layers underneath a currently live urban settlement is a very interesting subject to be decoded, especially when the only available input is the literature and the practical site itself. Khalifatabad, Bangladesh, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and three other historic townships of the same founder offer a fascinating opportunity to proceed with a literary cartographic approach to identify the artifacts, some very precisely and some within the scope of imprecise geography. According to Literary Heritage, reference to Professor Mitra, Dr. Nazimuddin Ahmed, and few others, the artifacts are widely distributed along a route of 150 kilometers and branch routes. There is neither any existing map nor concrete visual or spatial evidence about it except the literature, text, and memory. Artifacts of these townships are hidden in existing villages and urban areas. The interdisciplinary method to perform the research combines very different sources, such as satellite imagery analysis, visiting the places and documenting, interviewing research persons, consulting literary heritage, and turning them into spatial data, finally data mapping with GIS application. In short, superimposing all the layers in a spatial format. The expected output is visual illustrations in the form of interpretative maps with an aim to understand the historic township's spatial morphology. This is a key diagram and graphical abstract of my project. I am going to place a small version of this diagram and code number in most of the coming slides so that I can refer to a certain layer when I show something or talk about something. Most of the studies and digital humanities projects regarding mapping literature or literary cartography have a linguistic approach. Usually start with a corpus of selected theme of interest and end up into finding analytical results with visual illustrations and geographic reference. The reference can sometimes be very precise and sometimes be quite broad depending on the literature. In my case, it is a bit different approach, looking for information in text, not just finding any concept or pattern or comparing themes over a period of time that appear in the text. I try to find information about specific stuff and turn them in spatial data to place them in layers in real locations. I am consulting a mix of journal articles, books, databases, and map collections. Reference to Kairos in 2015, I have adopted close reading options because Many of my literature are printed material in different languages. Some of them are rare books in PDFs made from scanned images. These texts have various periods of publication, with the oldest one in 1914. Therefore, I am leaning away from most literary cartography projects towards virtual archaeology to explore spatially oriented historical questions, while literature remains the prime source of information. It should follow the diagonal line in this diagram. Okay, let's go back to the reference site now. The UNESCO World Heritage Site Kalifatabad is located in the southern west part of Bangladesh beside Bhairab River. The bottommost dot in the last diagram is that. It is a historic mosque city of Bagerhat district. It is a part of dispersed settlement now. The current city center is few kilometers away, also on the bank of the same river. The key person behind founding this township was the ruler and Muslim saint Ulugh Khan Jahan. He built most of the structures in famous architectural style with a Turkish origin. Only few architectural structures, locations, and few lakes are identified in the official government documentation, which results in the map prepared about 30 years ago, the one on the left hand side. The right hand side map is a schematic. The actual extent of the city of Kalifatabad should be much larger because there are more items to be included from other locations. Among the tangible architectural heritage, at least 10 working mosques and fewer number of tombs, residence, meditation chamber, ghat, and legendary lakes or cultural landscapes are found in the survey. There are quite a few unidentified mounds and sites on the right hand side. Among the intangibles, there are performing arts, worships, rituals, and beliefs, weekly bazaars, as well as biological and communal heritage. Some are institutionalized, protected, preserved, while others are not. Elements from above that has georeference were considered for mapping. Among all the intangibilities, the crocodile and its cultural significance at local and national level is very profound. And the original marsh crocodile's history is 600 years old. The last descendant died 1 year ago. At present, there are only two crocodiles that are living in the lake next to the tomb of Khan Jahan. They were imported from India. Okay, containing all those tangibles and intangibles, the extended township is located beside Bhairab River, which I traced back because some portion of this historic river is already dead and absent from contemporary national mapping of rivers. While tracing the river, I used to have the references from satellite images as well as the text that records how the river goes from point A to point B, merge with another, and produce a big bend on the west of C railway stations, things like that. I find the coordinates of the place names, railway lines, bridges, and stations are still present to use them in the map for reference. In addition to resources of online maps and satellite imageries, for more information and authentication, site survey was performed at different reference points. For example, this tiny bridge on the connecting canal here. Along with photographic survey, I took video as well as interview of local resource persons. Some of them are actual witnesses to historic artifacts um, and their locations that were still visible in their young age. Also notes on-site conceptual drawings and GIS coordinates for the existing structures. Hidden connections. There are some ruins that are impossible to find from published maps and satellite images. The hierarchy of land use and geological feature, topography, and local agricultural practice were surveyed and studied to find out the relationships between landscape and river, from high to lowlands, from public to private spaces. The relationships illustrated in this section is valid for major rivers and large canals. I have found some elements from field survey which contribute to my mapping and hypothesis of Khalifatabad. For example, there is evidence of historic highway made of brick with very unusual size, identical to the brick used in preserved architecture of that period. But as you can see in this photograph that it is now hidden under a newly constructed road. So I recorded the coordinates and drew the entire length of the highway in GIS application. Another example. There is a very interesting story of battle on elephants between the troops of Khan Jahan and troops of Mogg King Cornwallis, a very well-known non-fiction among local people for hundreds of years, as well as described in this book. The winning in this battle marked the start of the reign of Khan Jahan and the northern extent of his territory. From then, the name of the place was Piljanga, where Pil means elephant and Janga means battle. At present, there are dispersed settlements, some historic temples, fields, and schools. Third example. According to eminent historian Mitra, the Buddhist statue was found by Khan Jahan while excavating the crocodile's water tank. He thought it belonged to the Hindu community and returned to them, while allocating separate land for them at this location of the temple in the photograph, just outside the Khalifatabad. Therefore, it perhaps marks the southernmost extent of the historic settlement of Khalifatabad. This statue, interestingly, possesses elements of both Buddhist and Hindus, such as trident and a snake are the motifs from Hindu religion, but the person in the statue is Buddha. Therefore, it actually complies with the well-established history of successive practice of Buddhism and Hinduism in this locality. However, having all the information from different sources, turning them into spatial data, placing them in layers, mapping and merging them, we arrive at a much larger extent of historic settlement. All the points, lines, and objects in this map can be pinpointed by coordinates and therefore have precise location. Perhaps it is possible to extract more information from landscape that help to build up a comprehensive picture of the morphological footprint of historic city of Khalifatabad, even if it remain in the domain of imprecise geography. Since the geography is predominantly a part of delta and close to the sea, therefore the land is subject to tidal transformation. Therefore, if we try to imagine the active places of the historic township, we must exclude the lowlands that are inundated by water every year and not suitable for the then urban area. I took help from Google Earth Engine's satellite imagery for last 35 years and topography analysis by QGIS. Please note that the UNESCO World Heritage Site is quite smaller in the middle. The next slide shows the map of that area. This map is prepared by the GIS unit of Local Government Engineering Department of Bangladesh, which depict in detail all infrastructures and landform. Remove all the clutters except river, canal, and current settlement. Remove the settlement and look only at rivers and canals. Now, the rivers have water running all the year round and entitled to tidal flow or current because the sea is not very far. But the canals are more or less one way. They are regularly fed by river, but not in dry season. Now, if we zoom in to the scale of the previous satellite image we saw a few slides ago, we can see that the non-green area of the satellite image coincide with the canal network. Therefore, the green area as seen in the satellite image are high lands with big permanent trees. The fact is also evident in a video of satellite images for 35 years. This is extracted from Google Earth Engine. Please note that while the appearance of highland remains constantly green, on the contrary, the lowland area changes appearance at least 2 times a year. In rainy season it becomes wet and green, in dry season it becomes brown. Here are two pictures to have an idea of that. On the left, lowland is covered by seasonal crops. On the right, highland with permanent structure and tall trees. Let us examine the age condition between these two types of land. There are series of interventions such as KMZ format file, DEM elevation data from STRM database, GPX file, etc. to extract spatial data from Google Earth satellite imagery and produce a usable contour maps in QGIS. We can see now that the age is quite defined by concentrating contour lines. Low areas are brown and high areas are greenish. The maximum height difference is 10 meters. Bird's eye view is also another option for better perception. It has been created in QGIS with 3D map view using the hillshade elevation data from Google Earth. Just beside the urban area next to the river, the high land is the site for Khalifatabad. There is another layer of filtration. The place name database file available at the GIS portal offers nearly 34,000 entries along with the coordinates and associated administrative levels for the whole country. The database file is converted into CSV and sorted and filtered for case study area, which brought down the number of entries to 198. They are placed in separate layer in QGIS. Now only the place names with close vicinity to heritage site and having relevance with reference to literature are considered for mapping, and the locations are included to understand the geographic extent of the historic Khalifatabad city. So, from previous slides, the georeferences of tangible and intangible heritage, geological features, and landscape, century-old cultural and agricultural practice, evidence from artifact, non-fiction, photography, local witness and historians, satellite imagery, and topographic analysis, and finally the location of relevant place names, all placed in different layers, superimposing each one on top of another. Here is the comprehensive understanding of morphological footprint of the historic settlement of Khalifatabad. Of course, this is just one possibility of graphic representation, where there are elements that are tangible with precise locations. There are others with imprecise geography. Archaeological excavation and random discovery by general people is still going on. Therefore, I believe in near future there is more scope to enhance and enrich this map. Thank you.